Welcome to this explainer. Listen, today we are going to completely shatter the movie monster myths we've all been taught about dinosaurs. It's time to leave the Hollywood illusions behind and prepare for the strange, fascinating, and frankly, thoroughly bizarre truth about the giants that once walked our Earth.
Be honest for a second. When you hear the word dinosaur, what pops into your head? You probably just imagine giant, scary movie lizards, right? The classic roaring T-Rex. Big, terrifying teeth, sharp claws, and those loud, monstrous roars shaking the ground. That's the image deeply ingrained in all of us. But the scientifically accurate reality? It was far stranger than anything you've ever seen in the movies.
The real picture is that dinosaurs were incredibly diverse and profoundly weird. We're talking about massive creatures, rocking feathers, giant sails, duckbills, heavy impenetrable armor, intricate horns, fully functional wings, and, get this, some even had 500 teeth. We are going to explore all of this, and trust me, it just gets stranger and stranger as we go.
Let's actually start with a truly unique specimen, the Nigersaurs. Now, at first glance, it might look like your standard, long-necked dinosaur. That is, until you look closely at its face. This bizarre creature featured an incredibly wide mouth that acted like a literal prehistoric vacuum cleaner. Scientists believe it walked around with its strange head close to the ground, practically inhaling plants like a giant biological lawnmower. And remember that wide, vacuum-like mouth? Well, it was packed with 500 teeth. Yes, you heard that right, 500. But here's the absolute craziest part. Those teeth constantly fell out and regrew. Just imagine losing hundreds of teeth on a regular basis and not caring at all because a brand new set is already pushing through. Now imagine wandering through a dense prehistoric forest and bumping into the Therizinosaurus. This dinosaur was a walking contradiction. It was a giant-bellied, feathered dinosaur with a tiny little head and absolutely terrifying claws. Honestly, it looked like an absolute nightmare chicken.
We're talking about claws over a meter long. That's longer than a standard baseball bat. You look at those Freddy Krueger-style weapons and assume it was the ultimate killer. Actually, scratch that. These claws were really used for pulling down branches, scaring off enemies, or fighting rivals. Why pulling down branches? Because this terrifying-looking beast was probably a plant eater. Imagine a giant feathered dinosaur with sword-length claws just using them to eat a salad.
Okay, so most of us think dinosaurs strictly dominated the land, but the Spinosaurus absolutely destroys that myth. This was a colossal animal. It was actually bigger and heavier than a T-Rex. But the Spinosaurus didn't just walk the earth, it swam in the rivers. It was perfectly equipped for the water, featuring long crocodile jaws and a towering giant sail on its back.
Let's break down his terrifying hunting sequence. First, it would propel itself through the river using a massive, powerful, paddle-like tail. Second, it would plunge down to chase giant prehistoric fish entirely underwater. And finally, it would strike, attacking with those vicious crocodile jaws. Think about that combination for a second. It was essentially a dinosaur mixed with a crocodile and a shark. Pure nightmare fuel.
Next up is a dinosaur that looked so incredibly weird, early scientists actually struggled to believe it was real. The Parasaurolophus. It had this weird duck-like appearance, but its defining feature was this giant, sweeping, tube-shaped crest extending right backward from its head.
And here's why that crest is so fascinating. It was essentially a giant dinosaur trumpet. Scientists believe that Parasaurolophus used this elaborate crest almost entirely like a musical instrument. It had hollowed-out air passages to honk and create these deep, booming sounds that would echo across the jungle. Imagine standing in a misty prehistoric forest and hearing an entire herd of these creatures playing their built-in trumpets. It might have sounded beautiful, spooky, or completely terrifying. We just don't know for sure.
Let's shift gears and talk about one of the most famous dinosaurs of all, the Velociraptor. The movies made them look huge, like scaly, man-sized hunters. But the reality? They were only about the size of a turkey. However, do not let their turkey size fool you. They were still incredible predators, equipped with devastating sickle claws, sharp teeth, feathers, and astonishing bird-like speed. They didn't look like overgrown lizards. Scientists now believe they looked much more like giant, extremely angry birds.
While some dinosaurs relied entirely on speed, others went pure defense. Enter the Ankylosaurus. This creature evolved into a literal, living, breathing, prehistoric tank. It was covered from head to tail in incredibly thick armored skin and dotted all over with sharp, menacing spikes.
And its defense wasn't just passive either. The Ankylosaurus could swing the massive, heavy club at the end of its tail, like a giant biological wrecking ball. The force was so immense that scientists believe a single hit could easily shatter the bones of an attacker. Even the most desperate giant predators probably avoided trying to take a bite out of this walking tank. It just wasn't worth the risk.
Now let's pivot to the true titans of the ancient world, the Argentinosaurus. We are talking about one of the absolute largest animals to ever exist in the entire history of our planet. This was a creature that stood taller than modern buildings and weighed heavier than a whole herd of elephants combined. I want you to truly imagine standing next to a living, breathing animal that completely dwarfs a school bus.
To put that into perspective, the Argentinosaurus could grow to be over 35 meters long. That's over 114 feet. A creature of this immense scale didn't just walk, its footsteps would literally shake the earth beneath it. And remember, this magnificent giant was entirely real.
The feathered reality. For decades, we pictured all dinosaurs as these scaly, leathery reptiles. But the fluffy truth uncovered in the fossil record is vastly different. Many dinosaurs didn't look like dull green monsters at all. Evidence suggests they featured bright, vibrant colors, elaborate striped feathers, functional wings, and even thick fuzzy coats to keep warm. They looked vastly less like cinematic dragons and far more like giant, wonderfully weird birds.
But of course, this incredible era of bizarre giants had to end exactly 66 million years ago. A catastrophic event forever altered the trajectory of life on Earth. A giant asteroid slammed directly into our planet. The impact triggered a devastating apocalyptic chain of events. First, the sheer kinetic explosion caused massive global firestorms. Second, the impact displaced the oceans, sending giant, unimaginable waves crashing across the continents. And third, the ash and debris choked the atmosphere, plunging the world into darkness and triggering a total climate collapse. In the aftermath, most of the spectacular dinosaurs we've just discussed completely disappeared.
But notice I said most, because here is the incredible twist to the whole story. Small, feathered dinosaurs survived and evolved. They didn't all die in the fire and darkness. The smaller, highly adaptable, bird-like dinosaurs managed to scrape by. And over the next several million years, they slowly evolved into entirely new forms.
Which leads us to an astonishing realization about the world right outside your door today. Pigeons, chickens, eagles, ostriches. Modern birds are not just related to dinosaurs. Scientifically speaking, they literally are dinosaurs. When you look at a chicken pecking the ground, you're looking at a tiny relative of the T-Rex. That pigeon on the sidewalk, it's basically a highly evolved flying raptor.
Dinosaurs weren't just giant monsters. They were weird, colorful, highly adaptable, and unbelievably strange creatures. They never fully disappeared. They're still around today, singing outside your window. The age of the dinosaurs didn't completely end, it just sprouted wings and took to the sky.
I hope this explainer has completely changed how you view the prehistoric world. Dinosaurs were far weirder, far more complex, and honestly, far more incredible than fiction could ever invent. So before you go, which dinosaur do you think was the strangest? Let us know in the comments. And until our next deep dive into the fascinating reality around us, stay curious,